Hello, and welcome to another edition of No Lights Paranormal, where three nerdy paranormal investigators sit down and discuss spooky stories from the web. My name is Joe. I'm the lead investigator.
My name is Teresa, and I am the researcher.
My name is Alex. I'm the Baba Yaga enthusiast and the equipment setter upper of the group.
Yeah. So, yeah, I got nothing to say to that. So I don't think we have any announcements to get into this week.
I actually have none. I have no announcements at all. It is a boring week.
No. What I will say is I will say thanks to my group at work. I did bring it up during a recent stand-up meeting at work.
Mm-hmm.
And I now have some certain people that can start listening to the show. So
Nice.
Cool.
Welcome. If you're listening this week, welcome.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you.
We super appreciate you. I hope that you enjoy the content. And of course, if you have any stories, share them with us.
Yeah. Make sure to click like and follow.
Thanks. Speaking of work, I actually got a new job. Today was my second day at my new job. Just for anonymity purposes, I'm not going to say where it is, but the ladies that I'm working with are stellar. None of them that I'm aware of know about this podcast yet. I will change that. But yeah, they're all pretty fabulous. So
It's kind of shocking that you haven't told them already, because you're normally the first one to bring
I
it up.
know. I'm like, hey guys, guess what I do? Yeah, but no, they're super fabulous, and I like them all a lot. So
Yeah.
hopefully this is going to be a good one for me.
we've been doing this podcast for almost a year.
Almost.
We have a monthly newsletter that comes out with like podcasts of the month for like our specific group, the
Yeah.
FQAs
Yeah.
at Amazon, right? I have neglected to even mention it up until this point.
That's why you're not the media person.
That's right.
That's why I'm a media person. Nah,
Yeah, that's why we made him the tech guy, people.
It is what it is.
Amazon FQAs, I love you. Thank you. If this is your first time turning in, would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I guess that would make us the media people, because I posted it on my manager's profile for work. So,
I remember you saying that you did
Right.
that. Yeah.
even our logo's posted on there. So
I am fine with it.
due diligence.
You
Due
must,
diligence.
it's you today. You're the media guy today. Because I didn't mention my new job yet either. But you know what? I'm only on day 2. Give me a second.
Right, you got some time. So
I'll win them all over first.
this week we're doing
Sarah is my kind of boss.
Okay,
She's in charge of the Pittsburgh region.
gotcha.
So I got to excite her a little bit by the fact that we did Pennsylvania last week.
Right.
It was a good episode.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well-
this week we are focusing on Alabama.
Alabama.
Beautiful, great state of Alabama.
Which I actually, one of the articles I did look up, I didn't go with the story, but it caught my eye. It was kind of hilarious. It was spooky stories with a twang.
With a twang, I love that.
I'm like,
Gosh.
that's actually pretty genius.
That's
But the story really didn't go anywhere, so I didn't really pick it. So
No, I get it. But that's super with a twang.
yeah,
I have done
I got a bit of a twang.
all of the stage and had fun doing all of the stage. What I will say is I don't think I've ever had quite the reaction from both my friends and family and people that just I know that listen to the podcast as we did with Tennessee.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
But that's only because my story was mildly, absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. We spent a lot of time in Tennessee, though we actually lived there for a while. So,
Yeah, I was about to say, you guys had the insider knowledge.
Hoot Annie was hilarious.
gosh.
Or Hoot and Annie.
Yeah.
I still say that. I don't say Hootin' Annie anymore. Now it's Hootin' Annie.
Yeah. How? I haven't changed it.
It's just the way it is.
Hootenanny is really not my vocabulary wheelhouse. So
But we're not going to cheat you. We are going to move on to Alabama. Alabama was the state this week. I had a great time in Alabama.
I actually have a story that I like a lot.
yeah, there was a lot of stories that I saw that like piqued my interest in as far as paranormal and lore, which is two of the ones I go into.
Heck yeah.
But this one I chose a little bit like, maybe you could table this for a roundtable discussion, but I kind of want to preface a point with the story that I have. So yeah.
I get that.
What I'll say is like the Southeast U.S., like the whole like Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, New Orleans, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of good stories from that corner
Oh,
of
yeah.
the U.S.
Oh yeah. Well, it's that southern tier
Mhm.
that, oh, you did? No, you didn't. It's that kind of thing. Where,
Right. And, you know, I grew up in my grandparents were from the great Appalachia. You know what I mean? Like the very southern tip of Ohio, mostly Kentucky, Virginia, yada, yada, yada. So there's the Appalachia part.
Yeah.
Here where we live, we are actually just barely not considered Appalachia. So it actually extends a lot further north than
it's anything within like that middle of the state, middle of the state, like not mountains, but like hill belt. And then south of that is all Appalachia.
I don't know. You guys said some word there that made my OCD, ADHD go haywire.
100%.
So, southern tip, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I get it. I'm not debating that fact. It's just in my brain.
You asked any southern man.
Oh, yeah. It's just like, wait, what? Like I said, my brain's a weird place, so just go with it. But yeah, who's going first this week?
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I went first, so I will if you want me to.
I'll actually go last this week because I think mine is going to table more of a discussion rather than anything else, so I'll go last this week.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Fair. I'll go somewhere in the middle. That's between you and her. There's only three of us.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense to me.
50-50.
All right, so this week I focused on Montevello University, which is in Montevallo, Alabama, obviously.
Shocking.
So, yeah, I know, right? Who'd have thunk it? So, the University of Montevallo is actually spread across 160 acres of the main campus, surrounded by lawns, green groves, flower beds. It's absolutely beautiful, super well manicured. There are 28 campus buildings in total, and the entire property is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The University of Montevallo is a very high quality, but relatively small liberal arts college with about 3,100 students and an incredibly well-educated faculty. Many, many beautiful buildings, both old and new, house the students, the 4 colleges and their support staff, classrooms, administration, libraries, and all the other things you need, obviously, to run a successful college. So the 4 colleges that make up the university are the College of Arts and Sciences, the Michael E. Stevens College of Business, the College of Education, and the College of Fine Arts. So those combined have a lot of really interesting buildings with a lot of incredibly rich past. So the land where the college stands now has got its very own history apart from the buildings. Wealthy businessman Edmund King moved to the area in 1820s, sometime in the early 1820s, with his wife and son, and they carved out a little homestead on top of the hill. They lived there with a neighboring Indian tribe, actually, who still occupied the land at that time and hadn't been, run off yet, thank goodness. He named his lovely home Mansion House, known now as the King's House, because obviously, Mr. King. And it was considered the most glorious mansion in the county, possibly the entire state. His family and his money were the 2 things that he held very near to his heart. As time passed, more people developed the area. During the Civil War, an existing building was turned into a Confederate hospital building. It's now known as Reynolds Hall. So Reynolds Hall used to be a Confederate hospital. As the area became a rest and regroup area for Confederate forces, underground tunnels were supposedly also constructed, which would make safer travel for the rebels to move about. Nearby in town, there was the Briarfield Iron Works, where high-quality iron was made for the Confederate Army's war effort. When a group of Union Army led by General Sherman swept into town, they completely destroyed the ironworks, and then they made a pit stop at the Confederate hospital and absolutely massacred all of the sick and wounded men.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I do, but...
Well, I mean, you don't hear Cedar being like, I saw. Felt really bad about it.
Felt really bad about it, exactly.
Cut the spite.
The victims of this were buried in King's Cemetery, which was on the property, so present day it is still located on the campus. So this was actually ridiculously shitty. What actually happened was Reynolds Hall became that Confederate hospital. Obviously, it was named after Captain Henry Reynolds. He oversaw the hospital. he ended up having to leave his post to go and assist soldiers at the Briarfield Iron Works because that's where the Union had attacked first. Nobody really thought anything of it, quite honestly. But when he returned, he realized that the hospital had been attacked and all of the wounded soldiers had been just completely demolished. I mean, and they really weren't cool about it either. Like, they just left bodies and blood everywhere.
Yeah.
So he was obviously incredibly overcome with guilt because that was his post. He was watching over these men.
Right.
So to this day, it is said that his spirit actually still remains there in the hospital doing rounds and making sure that the building is secure. They also, while he was, I think they said that something about his picture was hung up in the main hall, and they did sort of a reconstruction of the building, and they took his picture down and they went to hang up the picture of like the guy who currently runs that facility or something.
No.
That man's picture was taken down, and mysteriously, Captain Reynolds' picture was hung right back up where it was before.
Okay.
So they were like, okay, fine. And no, it's still there.
Wait, they did that on purpose or whatever is there did?
On purpose, when they did renovations, they took his picture down.
Gotcha.
And then presumably his spirit hung it back up.
Okay, that's what. Bless you.
Yeah. So, moving right along. Sorry. In October of 1896, the old hospital and the existing buildings became the Alabama Girls Industrial School. This was actually opened up as sort of an educational experiment because at this time, women were homemakers and moms. Like, that's it. That's all you do. Well, the goal was to educate young women to be self-supporting by training them to be teachers, bookkeepers, artists, musicians, dressmakers, telegraphers, and milliners, which is like milling things. This school was sort of the dream of a woman by the name of Julia Tutwiler. It was her mission to provide as much education for women and education opportunities for women as she possibly could. And so Captain Henry Reynolds was actually one of the main backers of this college, and he worked incredibly hard to help it get established. So it wasn't surprising, of course, that he became the first president of the institution.
Right.
The old hospital building was renamed Reynolds Hall in honor of him. Unfortunately, he was asked to leave as president of the university when it was discovered that students had been directly sending him their tuition money.
No.
Which was then going into his personal bank account.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
So, like, the first history of, like, embezzlement.
There you go. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Frowned upon in this establishment.
Exactly. The 4-story west wing of the main dormitory hall for the students was built and ready for occupancy in the fall of 1897. By 1899, the student body was made up of about 400 young women. In this dormitory was where there was actually a fire on the 4th floor in 1908, and a young woman by the name of Condi Cunningham unfortunately caught fire and burned to death in the building.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Spontaneous combustion or?
No, it was actually, so here's the official story. So it was the night of February 4th, 1908. Condi Cunningham and her roommate were making hot chocolate using a chafing dish and alcohol as fuel.
Okay, so fuckery.
When the curfew signal rang out, the girls rushed to put their items away, knocking over the bottle of alcohol, which got onto Condi's gown, and then her gown caught fire, and she ran out of her 4th floor dorm, screaming for help. By the time the flames were finally put out, it was too devastating of injuries.
Yeah.
They did take her to the hospital. Unfortunately, 2 days later, on the 6th of February, she passed. After she died, her face, interestingly enough, supposedly is actually burned into the door of the dorm room where she stayed.
Yeah.
So there's some sort of a burn mark that very much resembles her face in that room.
Or is it? Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like literally
Yeah.
her face touched the door. It was just
Like a flash mob.
yeah, there you go. Exactly. Eventually that door was replaced with a locking metal door, and no one has been assigned to that room ever since. To this day, residents of the main hall say that they can still periodically hear Condi running down the hall, see a flaming apparition running down the hall in a nightgown, and can hear her screaming for help.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's
something.
Poor girl.
Yeah.
Let's see here. In 1907, there was a new guy who became president of the place, Thomas Waverly Palmer. After demand for teachers' training programs became evident, Palmer instituted a more ambitious teaching program, which blossomed throughout the years. In 1911, the industrial school was upgraded to the Alabama Girls Technical Institute. And in 1919, it became the Alabama Girls Technical Institute and College for Women. And in 1923, it simply just became Alabama College, State College for Women, a degree granting institution. I don't know why they really needed the name to be that long.
Right. Sounds like they couldn't decide on the names, so they just
gave it all the names.
Right.
Yeah. Now I have to cough, damn it.
Yeah, not me this one.
In 1956, men finally started being admitted to the school. So yet again, the name of the school changed, and it was just called the Alabama State College. It evolved and it grew, and come September of 1969, it finally became the University of Montevallo, which it has stayed.
Like, I've had enough.
Yeah, for now it has stayed. So, I mean, there are plenty of really amazing stories about the individual houses as a whole. There is one, the Women's Hall, which is the third floor of Hanson Hall, houses a sorority. It's a dedicated entity who is a very, very strict house mother, seems to still be on the job, watching over the women in her residence hall. Residents who stay up late feel like they're being watched by an unseen presence that seems to be patrolling the halls and comes inside of each girl's room to investigate if they're up past bedtime.
Mama's watching.
Yep. One student left her mug on the desk. It mysteriously disappeared one day and then reappeared in the same exact spot a few weeks later. Palmer Hall. Now this building is really interesting, actually. It's a 1,100-foot auditorium with an organ, a stage area. There's a basement where they get ready to go on the stage and things like that. Let's see here. The gentleman who built the place was W.H. Bauer? Yeah. He was known as Trummy. Weird. Anyway, he was one of the designers of Palmer Hall. Unfortunately, his name accidentally got left off of the cornerstone when it was all said and done. So, to this day, Mr. Trumbauer, who was an enthusiastic supporter of the annual college night, which is a contest that's held to see who can put on the best play and other homecoming festivities, things like that, will give his opinion, he will clap or he will boo, and they will actually hear this. He lets the living know which play he thinks is best by swinging the batons over the performance of his pick during the final dress rehearsal of all of the shows in the contest, because he was a perfectionist and his opinion is highly valued. So if this happens during your play, they actually announce it and they're like, hey, you're supposed to favorite.
Cool.
So neat stuff. The old mirrors that used to be in the dressing room, people will see entities if they're staring into the mirror looking at it. They will see women in garb that's like old fashioned or garb that came from different plays over the course of time.
Right.
Like they're seeing them in the mirror, like they're dressing in that room. So really interesting stuff there. Let's see here. There's so much. There's just so much. The King's house, which was obviously Edmund King's home. Obviously that place has a lot of bad juju with the fact that it was the Civil War hospital
Right.
and the things that happened there.
Yeah.
Lots. So there is multiple apparitions in that building. One of them, it is, of course, Mr. King himself, who is seen walking around, sort of patrolling the place, if you will, just making sure that everything is good and everybody is safe. There is an apparition of an old man that has been seen wandering around outside, carrying a lantern and a shovel. Now, this is interesting.
See, he has a show.
He has a shovel.
Inside joke be disclosed.
And mind you, this man can actually be seen during the day as well, walking in the
That's
gardens.
different.
Yeah, he's seen day or night. Doesn't make any difference.
Huh.
Now, there is a rumor that back in the day, Edmund King actually hid a rather large treasure of gold and jewelry in the ground on the property, and he was waiting until the war was over to dig it back up and have his fortune.
Right.
Fair.
Because, they would have just taken it from him for
Right.
war efforts. Well, unfortunately, he passed away before the war ended. So somewhere on the property, his little treasure is still there.
Yeah.
So that's why they believe that they're seeing him walking around with a lantern and a shovel. Because he's like, well, war's over. Time to dig up my goodies.
Now, it was the Civil War?
Correct.
Yes.
So there has also been the apparition of an elderly gentleman seen sitting at the table, counting coins in the dining room on the inside of the house. Students who are walking past this one also during the day will see a gentleman in 1800s garb waving in a very good-natured way from one of the second floor windows.
Okay.
Like if they're outside, they'll see him waving. During a wedding reception held in the house, a huge white-robed phantom became visible underneath the dining table and floated out the window in front of all of the guests. Over 100 people saw this.
Okay.
Yes. And then, of course, there are cold spots that are felt randomly, but very, very often in Mr. King's old bedroom. The old main hall has multiple female entities, including Miss Condy Cunningham, who unfortunately came to her demise. Disembodied voice heard yelling, "Help me." The door to her old room swinging open and hitting the wall like holy crap, somebody's trying to get out of there quick.
Right.
There is another young woman who haunts the place who unfortunately opted out by hanging in the building some years back. It's been speculated that it was actually her face that was etched into that door and not Condy's face. But nobody knows, and now it doesn't matter because the wooden door's been replaced. Hearing the footsteps, of course, running down the hall, seeing flaming body and hair running down the hall, all kinds of just badness. The theater building is currently the theater building Reynolds Hall. Of course, Captain Henry Reynolds and that whole story, and yeah. Crazy shit.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
So, super fun story and lots of ghosts at Montevallo University.
Yeah, you said it was 6 different buildings with 6 different things. So yeah, that's a lot of ground to cover.
And some of the buildings had multiple things.
So also, to be fair, the treasury stuff is interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
I have some friends that have history in Alabama, well, family history in Alabama, who supposedly have hoards of gold buried on family land in Alabama.
From what I'm understanding, it's a very, very common thing because
Apparently Alabama is a very gold-rich place. I don't even know because there's quite a few. It's not just one.
I don't even know if it's Alabama per se. I think this is how the Southerners lived. Because their fortune, if they got taken over, it could just be put back into war efforts for the Northern Army. And I say that with quotation marks.
Exactly. That's literally the end of it. If it's found, it's gone.
Hell, some of my relatives that lived there in Ohio even put, it was a fortune, but they put what money they had in a safe in the backyard and buried it because they didn't want anybody to come take it.
Now, the absolute only
Common back then.
Right.
The only The only thing we have that could potentially tell us if the gold exists, the only indication we have of where it might be is that supposedly it was buried in his orchard because that was his favorite place to take walks.
Or maybe orchard was a keyword for somewhere else. Who knows?
Never know.
Never know.
Right.
But yep, one way or the other. That was a fun story.
Yeah. Which and I'm just going to say this, and this probably has nothing to do with the paranormal, but even with all the buried treasure out there, like they have stuff to go into the ground to find treasure, and so they just can't find.
Exactly.
So it's like, did it actually exist, or did he just make that up?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know that anyone has ever actually hunted for this particular treasure. So
I wonder, dude, he's walking around with the shovel. So
that's a good.
He's trying to find out where it's at.
Yes, Alabama itself is a pretty big place.
Right.
Just saying.
Yeah.
No, he's walking around trying to find out because he can't remember where he put it.
Right. But 120-acre property, that would be something to, go over 120 acres with like ground penetrating radar or something like that. You'd be in for a walk.
Yeah, but to be fair, if he just goes to the shovel and he doesn't have ground penetrating radar, and it's going to take a while to walk 120 acres.
That's a fact.
And human walk.
Human walk.
Not ghost walk.
Fair.
Is
Like
ghost walk slower?
No, it's quicker. They can bam.
Are we talking about the time between the Feywilds and the material plane?
Yes.
Maybe.
Got it.
I love it. But yeah, awesome sauce. So, Alex, go ahead and tell us about your story.
My story. Let's talk about historical significance. So, the Lucas Tavern and the Federal Road played very important roles in settling of Alabama in the early 19th century. Built sometime prior to 1818, the Lucas Tavern is the oldest building and was originally located about 15 miles east of Montgomery, Alabama, on the Federal Road at Line Creek, today known as Waugh. Waugh. Taverns such as this were located about every 15 miles, a good day's walking distance along the Federal Road, which was an important link between Washington, D.C. and New Orleans. Interesting. These taverns provided food, drink, shelter, and information to travelers, many of whom were traveling to the Alabama territory after the federal government opened it up for settlement following the Battle of Horseshoe Bend in 1814. Walter and Eliza Lucas acquired the tavern, Lucas Tavern, go figure,
Makes sense.
around 1820. On April 25th of 1825, the Marquis de Lafayette, the French hero of the Revolutionary War, spent the night at Lucas Tavern when he and his entourage realized they would not make it to their destination of Montgomery by dark. So, invited by the United States to be guests of the nation, his tour of 25 states was in honor of his service during the Revolutionary War. Walter also had a store and gin at Line Creek, but continued to operate the tavern with Eliza until 1842, when travel along the Federal Road had decreased due to the development of other roads. The Lucases eventually left Alabama, caught up in the westward movement. During the 1820 to the 1840s era, the Lucas Tavern was a favorite upscale place for travelers arriving in Montgomery to spend the night in clean beds, enjoy a good meal, and warm southern hospitality of its owner and hostess, Eliza. Eliza loved what she did and raised her family here. She had little education, but was a motivated hard worker who put her all into her tavern. Her warm hospitality, pleasant disposition, and wonderful service made her tavern business a success. In 1840, the Lucas Tavern became a private home and stayed that way for over 100 years. The building was abandoned in the 1960s, but fortunately, the Landmarks Foundation stepped in to its rescue in 1978 and moved the favorite tavern into the old Alabama town. The structure is currently the oldest in the old Alabama town. Other structures that were restored to their former historic glory at the same time, that you may or may not know about some of them, would be Tombstone, Arizona, was resurrected at the same time as the Lucas Tavern. The Hartford Twain House Museum in Connecticut, the forever home where the Mark Twain family was restored, and the spirits of Mark and his family and several occupants are known to haunt. The Morton Estate in the Mount, Massachusetts, the Bullock Hotel in South Dakota, where the spectral owner of Seth Bullock expects the living employees to be professional. Curtis House in Connecticut, where a male spirit keeps a close eye on tavern cashiers. Apparently, he's still kind of iffy about his business practices, right?
Or you smell good.
Right.
Or you smell good. It's either or. So when the Lucases moved into the tavern, it was a 2-room dog rot with an open hallway. Later, 2 more shed rooms were added, and it was enclosed. One of the added rooms was the dining room with an exit to the outside, which allowed Eliza to serve meals to her guests from the nearby kitchen site. Despite the building being later used as residence, then storage, and eventually abandoned, much of the interior of the Lucas Tavern is still original. So, let's talk about some of the manifestations. The most common sighting is of Eliza Lucas, that of a 5'3" woman, dressed in a Victorian dress, waving cordially and smiling at people passing by.
Salon hospitality.
Exactly.
On one Saturday morning in 1985, a man came inside the tavern, earnestly wanting to meet Eliza, whom he had encountered the first time just inside the front door. Eliza Lucas has not only appeared to various staff and guides, she also considers herself a member of the governing Old Hull Historic Committee and frequently shows up during government town hall meetings.
That's pretty cool.
Huh. Still got a voice to be heard.
Exactly.
It's true. Eliza also takes objects and puts them in different areas. She likes to rearrange, straighten up, or put in disarray various objects, things, or displays in the tavern and in the government hall.
Because how dare you interrupt a Southern woman's
But that's kind of the story of the Lucas Tavern. That said, so the Lucas Tavern still does offer tours and different tours around the town and the tavern itself and different meals that it offers. The tour of the Lucas Tavern, they do Thursdays through Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They are closed on Sundays. And tickets are literally sold at the Lucas Tavern at 310 North Hull Street.
Very cool.
Cool. Tickets to go to a tavern. Who the fuck it?
Tickets are $15. Children's 12 and under are free with paid adult admission. So,
I'm a child, so I
Yes.
for free.
I guess. Ask my wife. I'm a child.
I'm gonna try that next time I go someplace. Be like, "Hey, honey, am I a child?" Yes, you get it for free.
I mean, they can't debate that, right?
Hey, listen, I'll order up the kids menu. It's fine.
Because any dude who sits there, or not just any dude, but any woman that sits there and says like, "Oh no, you're lying." No, you're telling the truth. Like, no, but that'd be really cool to tour that place.
That's all. Yeah, I agree.
All right,
Rock on. Sounds fun.
that's
That's
it.
my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And what I love
All right.
most is he said that there was a guy who came up and he had met Eliza. And he was
Apparently,
like,
he had met her. And to be fair, so this guy, when he came back and said he had met her, this guy said that in 1985.
yeah, so they're like,
Oh,
he hasn't
yeah.
been here in like 100
Eliza and her husband bought the place in 1820.
Right.
Yeah.
So somebody lived to be like 180.
Yeah, he did.
Meet Eliza in 1985.
Right.
100% believe he absolutely met her.
I mean, yeah, we've all kind of dealt with that before. Like, I was just talking to this person over here, and like, there's no one there.
Yeah, there's
And then
somebody.
you start going in your own mind, like, am I losing it? Like, I guess it's,
She is super described as this woman in white in the Victorian dress.
Right.
It shows up as the woman in white in photographs. I try to avoid woman in white stories. Because
right. Because
Woman
it's
in
all
white
women
is
in white.
a lot of black and white photography, in my opinion,
Right.
is That explains more of what all that stuff.
It sounds to me like she was just authentically a very good Southern woman who's just stuck around.
From everything that I read and everything that I've heard and
I've got so much
people's
hospitality, I can't-
quote unquote experiences there.
Yeah.
Southern hospitality to the core. She loved her tavern. She loved owning something. And
Like I said, I got so much hospitality, I can't leave.
Oh,
here you go.
Right, exactly.
yes.
All right, I dig it though.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're done, okay. So my story, it's a little bit different. I'll preface it by saying that it's going to provoke thought, and it's something that we've talked about on the podcast before.
We like it.
No.
Very provoking thought.
But
Read.
I'm talking about Frank Fleming's statue, the Storyteller. Have you guys heard of it?
I know who he is, yes.
Okay. Well, he created this monument statue. It's kind of like got a pole on it with some things around it. And it's got a figure of a man with a ram head on it with a staff.
Okay.
And he's sitting on he's kind of standing, but it kind of looks like he's sitting because he's a ram. And then 5 frogs surrounding the ram.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in a pool and the frogs are spitting out water.
I think I know what you're referring to.
Yes. So Frank Fleming created it. It's called the Storyteller. So when he created it, the author actually had no idea what he was actually creating.
Yeah.
The frogs are in the shape of a pentagram,
Huh.
and the ram head mirrors that of a satanic sculpture from back in the day of what they imagined like Lucifer to look like.
I'm already excited for the frogs.
So,
Right.
So upon this sculptor's creation, some people met it with like, hey man, that's gorgeous. I love how you did it. It looks really good. Other people were like repulsed by it because of what it represented. Since its creation, it has had multiple ghost sightings around it. They say that Satan comes there at night to dance around it and take a bath. It is actually a favorite among, and I'm going to say this, it's just a word, Satanist, to come there and worship Satan. Now, as we all know, there's 2 different sects with that. So part of it do worship Satan, part of it's just like, he's just a dude.
Right.
But this attracts the latter, the one that come there and worship him. There's been animal sacrifices found there.
That's interesting.
There has been quote unquote portals to hell found there because it's a pentagram, so it opens up the gates to hell.
Really?
It has actually affected some of the businesses around there, as far as like hauntings, people being run out because they felt like a demon was there, and all of that. So they it's and this has gone on since its creation to present day.
That's interesting shit.
So it's constantly going around. The most popular figure is a figure of a hooded man that has horns coming out, who they actually say is the original person for the sculpture. They say that Satan is coming to experience his handiwork.
That's interesting.
Yes. They said there is a black mist around the pool on certain nights, specifically with full moons.
And it's this, so it's a fountain that not like a pool that would,
Yes, I'll show you a picture of it right now.
Oh, so it's a sizable fountain.
Yeah, it's a pretty big.
I was thinking more like fall of this that, comes off of like
No,
cooler, warm.
no, this is like a black mist
That's
that
crazy.
forms around the fountain at full moon nights when supposedly, the freaks come out at night kind of thing. So, excuse me. So with that, they're saying that Satan is coming to admire the handiwork of one of his minions that created a sculpture for it.
That's interesting.
So with all of that, a lot of church groups have tried to get it ixnayed, taken out, and all of that.
Sure.
So,
But they're the first ones that get pissy about stuff like that.
well, not just some of the church groups, also some of the people that live there that have no doubt, like, this is bringing bad juju in here, let's get rid of it.
Well, right.
So-
I get that.
But-
that. It's crazy.
Here's the thing. Everything of what I just said is a straight up lie.
What?
That is the reports coming from around there.
You had me going.
Fleming, when he created it, wanted to invoke thought and imagination among children. If you think of old storytelling, old Southern storytelling, think of Briar Rabbit.
Okay. Yeah.
They're mischievous creatures. They're fun-loving. They're witty. It's an old-time Southern storytelling.
Goodness gracious.
He created it for that reason. Didn't even have any idea, like, he didn't create the frogs in a 5-star pentagram, didn't do anything like that. He just created it to spark imagination within children.
That's insane.
And the townsfolk took it as you're trying to summon Satan to our humble village.
Oh my God.
So, the picture that you saw was just that. It was Briar Rabbit sitting there telling a story to his fellow creatures.
That's amazing.
And that's all the author did with it. That's all he did.
And they
blew their shit.
That's
Pardon the expression. And now it's come to know, like, now since that has come out, everybody's like, oh, all right, hysteria led into that. And this is what I want to bring up. Our minds have a way of creating something out of nothing.
yes.
It can be used for good. It can also be used for evil.
Yes.
This sculpture, I don't know if he was more of an artist, musician, or what. He just created the sculpture, had the purest intentions of making this to spark imagination within children of like, oh, sit around telling a story. Grandpa's telling me a story, and I'm sitting around, like we've all had with our grandparents and uncles, and when they're telling a story and it's close to bedtime, we're sitting around just listening and tell a story.
Exactly.
Or in the bed, like sometimes my parents would do. I'd be going to bed, I'd lay in there, and they'd read me a story to go to bed. Our imaginations, though, sometimes can run wild and take liberties with some things that should not be taken liberties with.
I'll agree with that.
As far as satanic cultists coming to there, that is actually true.
Really?
There are some satanic cultists that come there and then see the thing and then wonder, why would we come to see this? This is not what it is.
That's insane.
So there's a misconception with a lot of paranormal sculptures. Bigfoot. There's a lot of misconception that goes around. This is a perfect story of what I kind of wanted to get into. The misconception of something that we see that we want it to be more than what it actually is.
No,
Expectations versus reality.
I totally agree with you, and the fact that I actually brought this up to my wife the other day, because as you can imagine, being a paranormal investigator, I follow a lot of paranormal Facebook groups, right? And I brought it to my wife the other day that I feel like a lot of groups have forgotten the origins of paranormal and like the basic rules.
Right.
Right.
And by that, I mean, like, they post pictures and they're like, I see this, and I see this. And I was like, I started doing this. I started doing this a quarter of a century ago, 25 years. Yeah, quarter of a century makes it seem older. But I started doing this 25 years ago. Did nobody nowadays ever explain to you what matrixing is?
They will.
Like you caught a very blurry photograph,
yeah.
All right? Like you got a light streak on a picture. That doesn't mean that you see a picture in the light streak.
Right.
That means your brain makes up something.
Exactly. But that doesn't necessarily mean that something may not have been there. With this instance, it wasn't a picture. It was literally a sculpture that the creator of it was just standing there, like admiring the stuff. And then all of a sudden some dude come up and be like, you're summoning Satan. When
agreed. I was just trying to explain it in today's terms as well.
I got you.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree with you. A lot of people that are in this industry and in the world in general have lost that wonderment. We've lost the imagination to go find out what is actually happening, to find out what is causing this. Nowadays, it's more like, let's just stick a Band-Aid on it, call it this, and that's good to go.
Yeah.
And this story is a perfect example of that. Instead of finding out the truth, they made up something and almost cost what is actually, like if you saw the picture of it, it's a beautiful piece of artwork. It's a beautiful fountain. It's very well done. Granted, there's some, what happens with iron when you make it over the years, it kind of deteriorates, but still beautiful looking. And we talked about it on this podcast before where people have taken one thing, made it into another. Now, I brought up the aspect of making something out of nothing, where strong enough belief can make something out of nothing. But yet people have a strong belief with this, and it's created nothing.
Don't get me started on that.
There's something to be said about that, because I do wholeheartedly believe that the collective energies can create things that didn't exist prior.
Yeah.
And vice versa. They may be able to take it away as well.
And here, and I was just about to bring that up because here's the thing. Everybody believed in that as a statue. So did it actually create some things in people's heads that was actually existing?
Right.
But when the actual truth of it came out and people stopped believing of it, no one said anything about it since.
Right.
So do we have the power to create something and also decreate something by just pure thought?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is going to invoke a whole different conversation.
I think so, for sure.
But I really want to say this. If you're in a paranormal investigation and you see something that you can't quite explain, try your hardest to explain it and debunk it.
Yeah.
Because
always be looking for rational explanations to that.
right. Because just because you heard a noise down the hall doesn't mean it's a ghost.
Right.
It could be an animal in the place. It could be something else. So don't automatically jump to the conclusion that it's something satanic. It's something evil.
Is it fun to think that every bump in the night is a ghost? Yeah, sure. It might get your adrenaline pumping, but I mean,
Not really.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just, I was going to rebuttal that by saying,
Yeah.
but that's also kind of not fun because then
You're on
there's
edge
no
constantly.
more mystery. There's no more fun when you do actually find something.
What I can tell you, and what I can probably assume that most of my group will agree with me at this point, is much in the ways that, your standard everyday person will watch a paranormal show and believe that every bump in the night
Yeah.
is a ghost.
Is something paranormal in aspect.
Much to the detriment of my group, I will go above and beyond and possibly even make up excuses to why it wasn't a ghost.
Yeah, no, there's been some times where not just watching TV, but we've actually looked at evidence. Not necessarily because this is here at Wilson Island. I'm like, no, actually, at Madison, me and you almost got into an argument over it.
It's true. So what I'll explain is, in my situation, the way that I look at it, if I cannot absolutely prove, or what I'll say is, if I can't prove or disprove, in my opinion, and make myself believe that this is what it is.
Are we talking about like the situation where we were in that one room and we kept hearing something and we couldn't figure out what the hell it was?
In the hallway, yes.
Okay, yeah.
So what had happened when, I'm sorry, I was away from the mic, so you may have got to not hear me a little bit. But the situation that happened is me, Alex, and my nephew were hearing steps down this hallway. And we kept hearing, like, we asked questions and you hear steps like it was going away.
Oh, I think I heard like 3 years EVPs or something where you guys said something.
Yes.
And you were like, well,
This one, I don't know if you may have caught because we did this later on.
No, this was just me hitting
Yeah.
by ourselves.
no. Keep in mind, though, I'm the one that reviewed all the audio.
I explained it to you later when you were reviewing audio.
Oh,
Yeah.
But it was me, him, and Andrew by ourselves at that
Right.
point.
So we noticed there was two doorways at the end of the hall, or 2 doors at the end of the hall that were propped open.
yeah, and there was that tall chair in between them.
And then there's a door behind it, and it had duct tape over where the keyhole used to be. And Alex said it was the wind knocking the doors back and forth. And I looked at it, and I was like, there's no way in hell that could have done that because 2 doors don't touch, and it's not hitting the other chair. And when it did hit the other chair, you heard a distinct metal sound.
Also, I'll preface this by saying one thing. What I'll say is there were, between us 3, there were 2 very distinct noises that night. Right? I, in no way, shape, or form, was disputing, like, so.
No, I know.
So when the cat ball thing was going off,
Yeah.
and you and I were standing closest to that doorway,
Yeah.
I, much like you, did hear footsteps coming down the hall.
No, 1,000%. Yes.
And I am in no way, shape, or form disputing the footsteps that I heard coming down the hall.
Yeah.
What I was trying to explain away, or maybe even to some extent make excuses for, was when I and Andrew stepped into the hallway in the corner.
Yeah.
The footsteps in the night never seemed to move.
But see, to me, it did.
You okay?
I heard distinct noises of walking away.
To me, to be fair, if I would have felt or heard that it was getting closer or moving back and forth, like that would have been one thing, but I only ever heard I personally only ever heard it at the end of the hall. Right. So, like, I tried to explain that away and maybe even make an excuse if it just didn't move, it was stand.
Right. And mind you, when I was saying this, I wasn't up there. I know what we try to do. We try to debunk first and then try to prove it later.
Right.
it was just at that time that you were saying that, I didn't disagree with you. I was like, that's a good possibility, but I heard two distinct, different noises, and I didn't hear it going away much like you were saying. It was just in one solid place. But the noises I was hearing earlier on was moving and went from door to door to door.
Well, I will
So,
say
again-
the EVP that I found that I believe, I don't, it's not an EVP. The sound clip that I found that seems to coincide with that, it did very much sound to me as if the footsteps were getting closer to and then at another point further away from the microphone.
Right.
So to me,
And that microphone was behind us.
right.
So, yeah.
To me, I heard what I interpreted as movement.
Yeah. And this goes more to my point of like, you heard one thing, I heard another, and you kind of heard it as it is.
Yeah.
So we had two distinct things where you heard something, your mind tried to disprove it. I heard it and just took it.
But to be fair, again, I heard two different things
Right.
throughout the night. Like there was a time where I heard it getting closer and further, and it was moving. It was moving very much towards me.
Right. And this goes more to my point of two people will, and I told my nephew this later that night, two people will always have different aspects of the same thing. Because you heard one thing, I heard another, and I didn't get the chance. Andrew's not here, so I can't get what he heard.
Right.
But you were.
Right.
And
Well, and I
To
was
be fair, she wasn't even there. She just heard the audio from the camera.
Right.
so three people heard three distinct different things.
yeah.
So finding information and finding something out that actually everyone coincides on is actually the trick of ghost hunting.
And to be fair, that also brings up a super good point on, like, even when we are ghost hunting our group, even as close as we are, as similar as we are, we do our best not to talk, not to share information, and not to do everything we can, particularly to avoid influencing anybody else
Someone else's opinion, yes.
until we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And mind you, we do take breaks here and there because you can only sit in a room for so long before like I need to get up and move.
And we're smokers. So
Right.
That night specifically was like, holy crap.
Yeah, I need to
literally
move.
freezing.
It was 10 degrees and we had to go back to a warm spot.
So yes, at the time when we take a break, we do transfer the cough.
Sorry.
We do take breaks and then we do talk about the information then and there. But again, that brings up the point of just because you see something, hear something, doesn't mean that's actually what it is.
Yeah.
And that was in the case of this storyteller costume.
And that's one of those things. And I agree.
So
That's pretty.
And my point would be that we don't do it in the moment ever.
no. The moment is, it's just like having a conversation with your significant other when you're angry. You just don't do that.
Yeah, just don't do it.
Like, I would rather have an argument with Joe 20 minutes later on whether it was getting closer or not,
Right.
than we all just buy into this, like, mass hallucination all of a sudden that, yo, this is exactly what happened. Like, no arguments.
And don't get me wrong, there are some times where if we kind of do get bogged into the mass hallucination. So having someone, whether it's Teresa, Alex, me, my nephew, or some of the other people we ghost hunt with, pull us out of that is a very valuable thing.
Yeah.
Because you have to have that, because you can go, no pun intended, you can go down the rabbit hole very far and lose yourself in that kind of stuff.
I agree.
So having
Absolutely.
that person that's like, no, I think it's more than this, is paramount to a group, in my opinion.
I agree wholeheartedly.
We just had,
Every group, at the very least, needs a skeptic.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
because if you have that, if
not a critic.
in every town, if they would have had one person who was like, I think you guys are way off base with this. It's just a bunch of frogs. And it's literally mimicking Briar Rabbit, which, if you guys have ever seen the cartoon or read the book,
Yeah.
it's a great storytelling book.
Yeah, agreed.
And that came straight out of the South. So, granted, they probably couldn't remake it nowadays, but,
That's got me thinking.
and you're welcome. That's the purpose of my discussion.
No, I like it. I think it's a discussion that needs to be it needs to happen.
I agree. It's
Yeah.
that one. My thought was like on topic, but also off topic. So it was regarding Andrew.
Mhm.
Andrew is our newest investigator to the
Yes.
team, and I'm sure I sung his praises quite a bit when we came back
Yeah.
from Madison. He did a phenomenal job, got a great solid head on his shoulders. I would actually really enjoy having him guest for one of our roundtables.
We need to get a guest for one roundtable.
Yeah. No, he said we wanted to do it. So, yeah.
Right, to be fair to do. I almost forgive you for talking shit about Ohio that one time.
He won't let it go.
I'm just messing with you. I love you, Andrew. You're a great dude.
Multiple reasons I'd like him at the round table is obviously that was his very first big real investigation.
Right.
He's brand new to the team. He's known you for a long time, obviously, but
Well,
not
that's
us.
my nephew. So yeah.
Right. He hasn't known us for ridiculously long amounts of time, just a few years, really.
Mhm.
So, and he's definitely never been with us in that sort of setting, in that situation.
Only once when we took him to the place we go.
Right. But
And
I
that was
would
it.
really say that was I don't,
That's the testing.
I don't really call that.
This
like
is what I'll say.
Investigation.
And between you two, this is what I'm gonna toss out there right now. The first time that we don't have a guest for a round table, that is the topic of discussion.
I just,
Indigo?
Absolutely.
I'm for it. I'll even say fuck yeah on that.
And we are just gonna deep dive on that place.
No,
Yeah.
I'm for it.
I agree wholeheartedly. I don't know what people.
I've just been waiting for the right time, and I feel like the first time that we just have like a guest fall out, or something falls through and doesn't
That's
happen,
it. Just go.
like that's a good time to do it. Let's just go
No,
ahead.
I am all for that. I don't even
Yeah,
have notes for that
close.
sucker.
Yeah. No notes necessary. No anything necessary. Got all the info right in my noodle.
Uh-huh.
And that might be a thick soda because we got some stories.
Oh, it will be thick. It will
And
be
I'm
thick.
super ridiculously interested in hearing what listeners have to say about the different aspects of that place.
Yes.
And if we could find even another big one, if we could find some friends out there who like to listen, who potentially are knowledgeable about Native American lore,
Yeah.
I 110% would love to hear opinions.
Yes, and if we do have actually that round table, and I'll point this out right now, and I haven't brought it up to you two, so I'm sorry about this. If we have that round table and you guys want to experience that place with us, granted it's going to have to be in the summer.
Yeah.
Let us know. Contact us on Facebook.
Oh, shit.
We go out like one weekend at a time. Like clearly, I'm not going to schedule 50 people.
No, it wasn't like it's figured.
I don't mind taking people to that place. I like to share that with them. It's a different kind of place, and I feel like everybody's going to experience something different there.
Agreed.
And I'll put it this way, and we'll have this some discussion. Be who you are there.
Oh gosh, please.
The place will recognize it, and it will reject you.
Yeah.
So just be you.
Don't fake it. Don't lie. Just be you. You are going to see. I feel like with that place, you're going to see either exactly what you're looking for or exactly the opposite of what you're looking for.
Exactly.
I don't know which one it's going to be. I can't promise anything.
Yeah.
It's a very, very interesting.
But that was my story for this week. That's what I wanted to happen. I wanted to promote discussion and thought.
Love it.
So,
So that said, before we wrap up and before we give our, how to get a hold of us and this and
How to
that,
do.
and
So your clapping just scared the shit out of Littlefoot here.
I apologize. Did you just fucking never
yep, she named
leave
it.
it alone?
He has tiny feet, so I just went with Littlefoot.
Either way. So before we wrap up and before we give our usual contact information and this and that, and we go into what the next state is going to be.
Yes.
I don't say the next episode because I realize we have episodes between here and there. But before I give what the next state is going to be, I just wanted to wrap up with this last little story about Eliza and Southern hospitality. All right. At a late afternoon meeting in front of the fireplace in the main tavern room, a controversial matter was being discussed. One committee member became quite agitated and angry while expounding his or her point of view. Suddenly, a great puff of smoke and ashes blasted from the fireplace, covering the angry person in a coat of gray chimney soot, much to the amazement of all the other people there. It was assumed that Eliza Lucas didn't approve of this person's hostile tone and opinion, which, in her mind, did not meet the standards of Southern hospitality, namely being pleasant or finding ways to settle disagreements amicably. The staff has to watch what they say as well. During a lunchtime break, two staff members were once discussing the historical district and how it operates, perhaps being a little too critical in Eliza's opinion. Suddenly, the door to their room began to slide off its hinges, and it hit the floor with a thud. Eliza seems to supervise the staff as well as any visitors, and she is a firm believer, it appears, in Southern hospitality.
I dig it.
The Southern hospitality is a real thing. I was raised up on some of it.
Yeah.
It is a real thing. They are not joking about it whatsoever. If you disrespect a Southern person,
Yeah.
good luck.
Exactly. And you know what? To a lot of people, let me explain this. Like, Southern hospitality may not mean exactly what you think it means.
Right.
But what Southern hospitality means to a lot of people that were grown in at least some sort of Southern semblance is being humble, listening to another person's point of view, and not just outright arguing about it.
Yeah.
There's an ethical disillusion of
Be an adult.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You grown up.
Grow the fuck up. Enough said.
You grown.
Exactly.
But yeah, don't be a dick.
So, Teresa, go ahead and give us our modes of contact, and then I will give us our next state, and then we will sign off with our sign-offs.
Love these sweet people.
Otherwise known as socials.
Socials. Like, subscribe, comment.
I would just love to hear from each and every one of you individually. I have plenty of time to read messages, so please send your stories, send your questions, send whatever the hell makes you feel happy.
That said, I did discuss this with my wife. The downside of Spotify is they will let you leave a star review, but they will not let you leave any comments or like reviews. So all you Apple people, as much as I give my buddy Joe here shit because I'm a Samsung guy.
Southern hospitality.
Yeah. Southern hospitality. All you Apple people, as much as I give Joe shit, I'm a Samsung guy. The iPod podcast stuff.
Yeah.
That's the only place where they'll let you leave a review.
Yeah.
So I noticed that we do have 5-star reviews in Spotify, and we do have 5-star reviews in Apple. All you Apple people, I would super appreciate it if you left us a comment or a review and just let us know how we're doing. Let us know anything we can improve.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, us Android and Samsung guys don't get the ability to do that because we listen through Spotify instead of Apple Podcasts.
But
Shut the fuck up.
again, you can 100% always send me any message, any comment, any suggestion, any story that you feel like sending me, and I will read it and I will respond. Or the boys, if you decide to write to them. But yeah, anyway, Facebook.com/No Lights Paranormal, No Lights Para on X. And we are also on LinkedIn at No Lights Ghosts. So you can reach us at any of those places. And then, of course, No Lights Paranormal at gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
That said, before I officially announce the state, wife, did you say that we actually had a first responder that has somehow, because I said so, earned themselves a hoodie?
Oh, goodness, yes.
You said somebody contacted us.
As a matter of fact, we did have someone, and you just are going to have to give me half a second to get on into there.
I am calling you out because I need that person to message me back with size so I know what size hoodie to get them.
Let me get in here right quick.
One hoodie, I'm
So-
sorry. If you're married, it's you or your wife, not you and your wife.
Well, let's face it. If they're married, the husband's hoodie is the wife's hoodie.
That's fair. That's fair. Just give us the bigger the sizes and share it. It's fine.
Right. So go ahead and text us with the size that your wife wants you to get. His name is Landon Peterson.
All right. So, Landon Peterson, we appreciate you reaching out. You have earned yourself the first No Lights Paranormal hoodie. Again, the team doesn't even have one yet.
And then I've got your message pulled up in front of me right this moment, so I'm actually going to be messaging you. And that means that by the time you hear this episode, I'll probably already know the size you want.
So she will message you, shoot us a size, and we will go from there. That said, I have checked our reports. We had a surprise overtaking and a super influx of listeners from a particular state. And
Somebody jumped the shark.
somebody more than jumped the shark. They jumped like the channel, like whatever that is. I don't even know. But Massachusetts. So Boston.
Roasted.
Well, not just Boston, like Massachusetts. But, you know.
Massachusetts in general. Yeah.
But yeah. So we had a super influx of downloads in Massachusetts. I don't know whether that was somebody from work that heard me advertise podcast or not. I have no idea. I don't know anybody personally in Massachusetts.
I don't think that I know.
But that doesn't mean none of my audience.
I have some family members there.
Do you? Okay. I'm fairly certain.
Again, that doesn't mean some of my audience isn't in Massachusetts that I told about it, but I don't know anybody personally in Massachusetts.
Right. Hi,
So,
family.
our next state will be Massachusetts. That said, next week should be a roundtable. So we'll see whether or not we have a guest on our roundtable to do our roundtable. And again, so just to give you guys some semblance of an idea, the session that we just had at the end of this episode where Joe and I and Teresa discussed how we do things and how this works, like that's the idea behind a roundtable. Only like just be a whole lot more expansive on it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's the original idea I had to the podcast, but I wanted to centralize it more. So we don't know where tell us what you like more.
We want to hear.
We're going to finish rounding out the states, and we're probably going to do countries now that I have countries that are listening.
And
Right.
gotta be honest, if you like this format, then cool, we'll keep doing this, but we'll probably go ahead and do the other format also. So,
Agreed.
but why not? Spread the wealth out.
We love you all.
You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for all the comments. Send in questions, comments, stories. I'm still putting together the podcast sort of spinoff. So I still need your stories.
And it might be more than one spin-off at this point. We don't know.
Exactly. I don't know what I'm doing. What I do know is I absolutely love you guys and I appreciate you so very much. Thank you.
Love you guys ever so much.
And remember to enjoy that good old Southern hospitality. Be hospitable.
But whatever you do,
Don't fuck with Baba Yaga.
Nah, I'm a fucks with it.